Hey, it's Lonnie West with LHZ Preamps, and today I'm going to do what I said I was not going to do. I'm going to put an LHZ preamp inside of a Fender American Jazz bass.
Here we go!
So I got this bass in 2016. Love the sound of it. I did not like the stock pickups that came with the American Jazz. I think they were N3s. They had a great sound, but a lot of hiss, particularly on the bridge pickup. So after struggling with that for about 6 months, I ripped all the electronics out. I put EMG X Series J pickups in here with the EMG preamp. Now I'm playing the Spectre bass more, and I use the Jazz when I'm working on the HL1 pedals as a test bed. And what I found is I really love the sound of the Jazz bass going through the LHZ preamp. So after much going back and forth, I found a way to do the mod so I can have both the LHZ preamp in there when I'm playing live and I'm swapping out between my Spectre, which I generally have with the bass and treble rolled all the way up, to this with the LHZ built into it. And then for those times where I just want the traditional Jazz bass sound with no EQ on it, which is how I normally play this with the bass and treble just flat. So I'm going to end up wiring it to use the built-in switch. So this bass arrived with 4 controls, your standard volume, balance, bass, and treble, and it also had a little toggle switch built in for the original electronics that came with the Jazz. This switch is not wired up right now, it's just sitting there. So what I'm going to have this switch do is act as a bypass. So on one position, it's running through the LHZ preamp. In the other position, it's directly coming from the active pickups through the volume and balance controls to the output jack. The EMG active pickups actually do not need a preamp. They're putting out the same voltage level after the preamp as they do coming straight out of the pickups. This is the diagram I'm going to be using. I'm going to run this on 9 volts because I like the sound of that. Pickups will be going into the EMG active balance control and then into the volume control like normal. The difference is instead of going from the volume control directly into the LHZ preamp, we're going to go into this toggle switch, which is a 2-pole double throw switch, and it's going to be wired. So in one position, the input goes to the LHZ and the output goes to the output, so we hear the LHZ. The other position, we're directly passing the pickup signals straight to the output and shorting the input of the LHZ to ground so we're not picking up any noise. So the first thing we're going to do is take off the back control cavity, get our battery taken out of the circuit, and see what we have going on there. Ah, 18 volts. That's going away. We're going to be using a 9-volt circuit from here. Okay, so looking at what we have going on here, 18 volts is just your normal 2 batteries wired in series. However, we can see the negatives is going straight to the output jack and then giving our switched ground coming in there. So we're going to be replacing all this, just using the 3 wires coming back to the LHZ as shown in the diagram. So let's flip it over and see what we got going on here. I'm going to take off the control panel, and the first question is, will this thing even fit? All right, so this is your pretty typical modular EMG setup. Pickups coming into active blend control here, volume control here, and then the tone circuit. So I'm going to be taking out the tone circuit. These will be replaced with the pots with the LHZ. Blend and the volume will remain as they are. The question is, will the LHZ actually fit in here? It's a pretty small cavity compared to what we have in a Spectre. So figuring where the preamp is going to go is always kind of the first plan of action that you need to have. The preamp is pretty narrow this way, and it's more, it's more than thin enough to stand up along the walls. But the question is, we have a lot of congestion on the control cavity. This is a very narrow cavity. And what you have to watch out for is we have 2 sets of pins on here. Your input and your power will come in from the side, so this is generally not a problem, as they will run along the wall, not get in the way of anything. However, the outputs come out as vertical pins that look like this. So if I were to put it along the wall, we'll have to make sure that wherever that is sitting, this jack is not going to get in the way of anything. It's possible I can put it along the side with the jack coming off the bottom and just the standard pots here. We might be able to fit it without any problems there, so that's a possibility. The other possibility is laying it flat. This would actually work very well, I think, because we can kind of come up between those. I don't think there'd be any obstruction there. And although we can't see it very well, this channel continues on straight back until we get here. So we could stand this up along this wall, partially underneath like this. Any of these options would be good. So I'm going to first take out our existing wiring and then take a better look at our space then. I'm going to leave the volume and blend controls on here because we are going to reuse those. Right now I'm just going to unplug everything so I have some room to work. Positive power bus. I don't need this since the LHZ has 2 outputs for positive power. I don't need this guy, so this will be coming out too. So what we're looking at now are our 2 pickups. Pickup, ground, and signal, and its power. So we got 2 of those. We have some ground wires in there which are not currently connected, and then these go to the jacks. I don't care about all these because these are all going to come out because we're just going to have 3 wires coming from the jack, so I'm just going to cut these off. So I'm going to be replacing the wiring on the output jack. Easiest way for me to do this is go ahead and take the jack off of the base. I'd prefer to do my soldering off the base and then put it back in afterward. And I'm just going to cut these wires off right now because I'm going to replace them with wires from the LHZ kit. All right, flipping the base back over, I'm going to take the remainder of the wires out. Battery clips, don't need those. And a couple pieces of wire. Don't need that. Perfect. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this output jack here, and I'm going to wire it up with our 3-pin connector that comes with the LHZ kit. So barrel jack wiring is very important. And if you look at the schematic, you'll see, and actually the Fender was using the same wire colors that I'm using. How barrel jack works is that they're a stereo barrel jack. So they're a tip, ring, sleeve. So if you think about it in terms of a regular jack, tip is this part on the tip, ring is a part in the middle, and sleeve is the ground part here. Now your normal guitar jack just has a sleeve and a tip. How this works in this type of jack, it's easier to visualize when you see it in here. We've actually got 2 springs on here. One goes to the tip, one goes to the ring, and then the center part that the jack goes into is the sleeve. So when you plug a normal guitar jack into this, the ring connector and the sleeve act as a switch. So what happens is that the power from the battery comes in on the blue wire, comes into the ring. The negative from the battery comes out on the sleeve back to the preamp. So when it's unplugged, no current is passing from the battery negative to the preamp, so the pickups and the preamp are not powered. As soon as you plug it in, this closes a switch in essence and powers up the preamp and the pickups. So I'm going to remove these wires and then solder on the wires that we have here. I'm going to use a little trick that I picked up a little while back. So holding this thing, you normally have some helping hands and whatnot. What I find really helpful for me is one of these little adapters, like an RCA to a 1/4-inch adapter with a knurled thing. Just holds very nicely in my alligator clip. Now I can plug this in here and now work on it. Allows me to rotate it. It's just kind of a life hack for electronics geeks. So let's go ahead and do that soldering now. And again, before you solder, just double check your connections. Most of the time, the tabs for the tip ring and sleeve will be opposite the springs that they're going through, and you'll notice they go through multiple layers. So the tip, I notice that goes down here to the bottom layer, comes around, so that's the tab for the tip. Ring goes to the second layer, comes around, that tab is ring, and then sleeve is connected directly to the sleeve in the middle. There we go. Okay. Our output jack is ready, so we're going to go ahead and put that back in the base now. So the next thing I'm going to do is put the bass and treble pots into the control cavity, and now I can start seeing where do I actually want the preamp to sit. The preamp wires are labeled on the board, bass and treble, so you can know which pot you're dealing with. So I'm just going to put those in there. So, I mean, my first thought is to lay it flat. So my question is, do I have enough clearance? So I don't have, apologize, I don't have a good angle on this. What I'm doing is looking underneath here to see if anything is hitting or anything is in the way. I got plenty of clearance, so I think I'm going to lay this LHZ flat in there and then wire it that way. Now I am going to wait until the very last thing before I take that tape off and tape it permanently in there. A lot of things change as you move wiring around, and sometimes you realize that things are better in a different place. So I like to save the taping to last, because once you tape that sucker, it's not going to come off very easily. And if it does, it's not going to go back onto something else too easy. So save the tape to last. Alright, so now we have everything wired up. I'm not going to put up the diagram split screen, but I'm just going to walk through the wiring. So we have both pickups, bridge and neck, wired to both layers of the inputs here. The output coming from this into the center of the volume control. The volume control output comes out, it's split, goes to this switch. Then the other half of the switch goes down to the input of the LHZ. We also had to take the white output wire from the LHZ output, split that, and also go through the switch. So now let's just make sure we can kind of close this up. I know it's not pretty. I will prettify this up later. I just wanted to show the process of doing the modification here. So I'm going to lay the preamp flat and just lightly put this cover down. I don't want to feel anything. No, it just sits right in place. So we got plenty of room. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and close this all up, and then we will go give it a test run and put the knobs on and see how it sounds. So how does it sound?
what we're looking at now is a Studio One project where I have a simple drum track, the bass before in light blue, the bass with the LHZ in the green. The EQ setting is the same on both basses, with bass and treble almost completely boosted. I'd say about 80%, which is where I like it. And I'd set the levels so on the hardest part where we're actually doing slapping and plucking, so the peaks were not actually redlining. So I backed off the gain until they were both the same level on the peaks. And this is where some people may find an issue with this, because it looks like the LHZ is louder, because you'll see in the other sections that it seems like there's more gain there. And that's just how the LHZ operates. When you're hitting it really hard, it hits that nonlinear range and it pulls those peaks down. So the result is, yeah, you end up with something that feels and sounds a little bit like you have compression on the track. So while we set the ultimate gain so the peaks are at the same level, when you're playing softer, the LHZ actually comes off a little louder. So what you're going to listen for as I play this is the difference in the articulation between the two as it alternates between the two. So let's go ahead and give that a listen. All right, and that's it. I know YouTube is going to compress the audio and do its own things to it. Here in the studio with my reference monitors, you can hear a lot more articulation and kind of bite on the LHZ that's sort of missing from the EMG. And that's really what the difference is. I don't know how well it's going to sound on YouTube, but that's kind of what we have here. Anyway, I hope you found this video interesting, and catch you guys next time. See ya.